Okay, everybody, 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins here. Good Monday morning to you. Well, lots developed over the weekend, right? We have Subtropical Storm Nicole now out there north of Puerto Rico, north of Hispaniola. You can see here on the map, we've got a second wave that's sitting northeast of that could develop, but not worried about that at all. That'll stay out at sea. Obviously now, with the cone covering just about all of Florida. In fact, it does cover all of Florida, even the western panhandle. This is what we will be tracking for you as we go through this upcoming week. So let's get started with it. I want to start now with, let's zoom in on this. This is the visible, the infrared satellite first. And right now, it's a pretty small center system right in here. The issue with this, though, which really is going to be for the east coast of Florida, is you see the wind here, the wind here, the wind here. This area here especially, there's a lot of wind blowing towards the east coast of Florida.
Bobby, not hearing you.
Gotcha. Thank you. Guys, can you hear me? I guess not, huh?
Good to go.
I haven't changed anything. All right, can you hear me now? Maybe you could hear me before. If not, I want to bring you up to speed on tropical storm. It's actually Subtropical Storm Nicole now, which has formed north of Hispaniola, northwest of Puerto Rico. You can see it out here east of the Bahamas. That system will move off towards the west. In fact, the Hurricane Center forecast, you can see that here. You can see the cone. It's drifting it off towards the west and then eventually trying to recurve it over top of the state. So this is the visible satellite. Then now you can see the infrared satellite. What I was saying was, look at all the wind around this. I mean, this is actually fairly small right in here, right now at least. But the wind field is not. The wind's blowing out of the south here, it starts to turn, and then look at all of this wind that's blowing in this direction towards the east coast of Florida. The longer you have wind, the more wind you have, the more water you push up against the coast. So what's going to really happen with this, it's going to do something like this and then come up and out, right? This is going to be a storm surge coastal flood issue up here for the eastern part of Florida. Minimal effects for us here in Tampa, but we will be affected if the forecast holds. So let's talk about it. This is the visible satellite. Not seeing a whole lot here. As I mentioned, you can see it's real small now, but again, it is forecast to develop and get a little bit bigger. And we're really not even focused as much on the core of the storm as we are on the wind field around it because of all the water that's going to push. The forecast from the Hurricane Center says that by tonight, we actually take the subtropical off of it. It'll have some warmer water. It'll have less of an upper level low. It'll be a tropical system, so Tropical Storm Nicole. It doesn't really matter either way. Look what happens by tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow evening, 65 mile per hour winds. Wednesday morning, 70 mile per hour winds moving in on the northern Bahamas. Category 1 hurricane by Wednesday afternoon moving over Grand Bahama. All right, so it will strengthen as it moves Wednesday. Well, tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday as well. Then a landfall sometime Wednesday night, early Thursday morning in the southeastern part of the state, West Palm area. Then it starts to come across. Now, notice the winds. After landfall at about 75 to 80 mile per hour winds, you see by the time Thursday morning arrives, it's out over Highlands County with 60 mile per hour winds. It will be weakening. And then by the time we get towards Thursday night and Friday, it moves over us, about really Thursday over Tampa area, and then starts to recurve and head back up the East Coast. Friday morning, it's up here near the Western Panhandle with 50 mile per hour winds. Same thing by Saturday morning, moving up the coast. So this is going to be a water effect, especially for central and northern Florida and even Georgia, and then even up into the Carolinas. They're going to get some coastal flooding from there as well, too. Watches and warnings. Right now, we have hurricane watches basically from Miami up through Cape Canaveral, all right, including the Bahamas, including Nassau. We have tropical storm watches from the Cape northward up through Jacksonville. Now, these are basically covering wind. How much wind will we see? We think in the purple here we could possibly at least get hurricane force winds, 75, 80 mile per hour. South of Miami down towards Key Largo, essentially a tropical storm watch. Okay, so those are for winds. Now, surge, and this is a little bit difficult to see here, but from Miami basically to Jupiter, it's about a 2 to 4 foot storm surge, right? We've got a storm surge watch in those areas. South of Miami is about 1 to 2 foot, but really when you get north of Jupiter, you go all the way up to southern, well, even up through Savannah, basically, 3 to 5 foot storm surge. That's the initial forecast right now. And this may change a little bit, especially considering wherever the center goes in. All right, now let's talk where this thing potentially goes. These are the plots, right? Spaghetti plots. You can see they start to diverge right in this area in here. The GFS model tends to be further down to the south. The H-Wharf is down there with it as well. Let me show you, where's the UK Met? It's somewhere in here as well. The European is basically up in this area as well too. The further north this goes, the less weather we'll get here in Tampa. The further south it goes, the more weather we'll get. If it comes way out here, it'll actually try and re-strengthen a little bit out here, and that'll put a little bit more wind up off the water for us. And then it just comes right up. What's happening is there's a great big area of high pressure sitting here, and it's moving in this direction. This thing can't come up into it. So it's going to try and come up, get pushed back down by it, and then wait for it to get out of the way and come up around it, right? That's what's driving all of this. Now, let's compare the European model to the GFS model. Pretty similar now. Well, although this is the last run, when the new runs are coming in now, for landfall. I mean, you can kind of follow it here. Pretty similar. Although the GFS is now, the latest run is coming in now, and it's actually a little bit further to the north. The red line that you see there, that is the center line from the Hurricane Center. I just want to put that on there, and this is going to change, right? But I wanted to show you that because in comparison with the forecast models to see what the thinking is. They are going pretty closely with the European model. Now, as we go out through Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, there it is, right over top of Tampa. The GFS has it all the way out, well off our coast at that point, so it's a little bit faster, a little bit further to the west. Now let's go out through Friday morning, sunrise. The European's up here, the Hurricane Center is pretty close to that. Look at the GFS. This thing takes it across and then really strengthens it, and then it's going to take it back up to the north and the east. So we don't want that, because then if that were the case, we would talk in a little storm surge for us. Right now, I don't think we have a storm surge issue. But if that were to happen, we'd have to watch. We would get some surge for us, and that would be Thursday into Friday. Okay, now here we are by Friday afternoon. The Europeans got it way up here. The GFS is just still coming on. The Hurricane Center's got it in South Georgia. All right, so we expect this to diverge a little bit as we go out in time. You know, today's Monday, now we're talking 5 days out. So the model should start to get a little bit better agreement as we go through the next 24 hours. Now, I want to show you our graph model. It's called the IBM graph model, right? You can see that there. This is the model that we show you every single day here when we're showing you where we expect the afternoon showers and storms, right? This model pretty much nailed Ian. The turn that Ian made to go into Fort Myers, this had it 2 days out, all right? So the official forecast wasn't even like that at the time. So I'm going to be watching this one a little bit closer, and I really wanted to show it to you to give you an idea of what it's thinking, because it's a little bit on the northern side. This is 5 o'clock Tuesday. There it is, the Bahamas right in here, Grand Bahama right in there. So it's a little bit further to the north, but watch, it's actually going to come back down a little bit as we go through Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. All right. Now watch as we go through Wednesday evening. It's starting to turn now to the north and the west. Look at this. I mean, the Hurricane Center's got landfall down here near Jupiter, right? The graph doesn't. The graph has it. Let me show you this right here. It's got it up near Cape Canaveral, just offshore, by Thursday morning, 11 o'clock. The other models are down in here. All right. The spaghetti plots, I threw a couple of them on here so you kind of get the idea where most of them are down here. There's a couple models that are trying to come up a little further north, just like the graph is. So I'm really hoping that that's the case, at least for the Tampa area. If this is the case, then it's much more of a storm for the Jacksonville area, St. Augustine, those areas. And look, St. Augustine on a king tide and a little bit of a breeze floods. So this is a really big flooding issue for Jacksonville, down to, of course, St. Augustine and even Daytona Beach, right, if that's the case. And even if the storm is down further to the south, they still have a bunch of winds coming on shore here, okay, and that's what's blowing the water. So that's why this is mainly a coastal event for the eastern part of the state. Now, let's talk about winds. This is the same model, okay, so we expect the winds to go a little bit higher. I put some numbers on here, and the model kind of spits it out what it thinks it's going to see. I also have on here the Hurricane Center forecast track, updated at 11 o'clock this morning, which actually I think came a little further to the south. But that's fairly close by Wednesday at 6 p.m. But notice the difference by the time we get to sunrise on Thursday. It's got the center up here, Hurricane Center saying somewhere near Sebring. Now look, this is in the margin of error from the Hurricane Center forecast, so it can go anywhere in here. And I'm only using this line just to give you an idea because the worst weather is going to be on the north side of this thing. Now, at this point, not much wind at all for the Tampa area, 7 o'clock on Thursday morning, 15-20 mile per hour winds. Rainfall, pick a model, whichever one's going to be. I actually think the core of this will be relatively small as far as rainfall goes. So you see, this is a European model. Remember, the European model has something that's kind of more like this. Maybe it's a little to the left of that, something like that. So you can see the heaviest rain is going to be on the right side of this. It's too far out in time, but these numbers are small. And that's because we don't have anything that looks like Ian that had a 45-mile wide eye wall, right? And it was a big storm, 350 miles wide. The core of this will be a lot smaller, I think, but the wind field will be relatively large. And that's why we're concerned about the coastal flooding for the East Coast. Not for us at this particular time. If it does get out into this area and try and turn, then we'll have to watch for some winds coming up at us as we get into Thursday. So we'll see. I think we do get a little bit of wind on the backside, but I don't think it's going to be a big issue for us. All right, name is Nicole. I think we're pretty good. We do have a 60% chance that we get Owen here next 24 or 48 hours or so, but that's the one that's east of Bermuda, and we'll stay out to sea. So we're going to keep you updated. We've got the noon show coming up here at noon. I'll show you that latest track again. Not a terrible storm for the Tampa area. We will have to deal with it. If you are in Polk County, if you are in Highlands County, Hardy, DeSoto, winds there could be in the range of 55, 65 miles per hour when it comes through. Okay, so you got to consider if you live in a mobile home in those areas, you probably want to have a plan to go somewhere else Wednesday night into Thursday. All right, well, the timing may change just a little bit, but as it moves back towards the Tampa area, the winds, the GFS is one of the stronger ones, and that's only saying 25 to 40 mile per hour winds with maybe some higher gusts. Right, nothing. We call it breezy, maybe windy. Tampa area at this point is not boarding up. I won't be boarding up my house, so it's not an issue at this point. But it is an East Coast storm. So remember, when it moves over land, it starts to weaken just a little bit. Okay, guys, that's it. I hope you have a great Monday afternoon. I'm going to be doing this later this afternoon as well, too. So don't forget all our Channel 10 platforms, our Facebook page, our YouTube page. I got my YouTube page, Bobby Deskins Weather as well. All the social media aspects. Follow our team. We'll keep you updated just like we did through Ian. And hopefully this goes a little bit further to the north and we even have less with it. All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you.